This week, I will be talking about the third and final movie in Romero's original zombie trilogy, Day of the Dead. Now that I've seen all three of them, I would like to say that personally I think Dawn of the Dead is my favorite, but that doesn't mean that I didn't like this one. There's a lot of really interesting things about this movie, from the creepy Dr. Frankenstein and his zombie son to the obnoxious Captain Rhodes, who was more trigger-happy than Andrew Jackson. There's a lot to unpack in this movie. Unfortunately, I won't have time to talk about all of it or we'll be here all day, so instead, I want to focus this specifically on one conversation and what it represented for the movie as a whole. This conversation was between Sarah and John in John and Bill's makeshift home. Sarah says that she doesn't understand how John and Bill can live in the same area as the rest of them and not do anything to help them, and John simply responds that it's because he doesn't believe that what the others are doing needs to be done. It creates a very interesting dynamic between the two characters and brings up a lot of important questions about life after the apocalypse. From Sarah's side, she's continuing her research because it's the only thing left to do.
What I'm doing. That's all there's left to do.
And because she believes that what they're doing will make a difference to the people in the future. This world is screwed, but they have to do what they can to understand it as a last-ditch attempt to save it. She believes that what she's doing is something important. Meanwhile, on John's side, he argues that they're not meant to understand what's going on, that there's plenty to do as long as there's still people around.
There's plenty to do. Plenty to do. So as long as it's you and me and maybe some other people, we could start over. Start fresh. Get some babies. And teach them, Sarah. Teach them never to come over here and dig these records out.
The world and society are over, but there's still people, and therefore why waste time trying to figure out the secrets of the universe when you could just live in the moment and enjoy what little happiness there is left in the world before it's gone. He also makes a point about God sending zombies to punish humanity for trying to figure out too much, which adds to a long line of religious references in this movie that I don't have time to dig into, but they are clearly there for a reason. Getting back on track, there isn't much of an answer to this disagreement, but it does raise an interesting philosophical question about what we should be doing when the world falls apart. Is it more important to cling to the society that we left behind and work to get it back, or should we simply live in the moment and see what comes next? This conversation is also tied to a larger theme in the movie about miscommunication and working with people who have differing outlooks on life than you do. The interesting thing about the dynamic between John and Sarah in this scene is that it's unlike most other relationships in the film, like the one between Frankenstein and Captain Rhodes, for example. Dr. Frankenstein and Captain Rhodes have a similar disagreement where one of them believes in what they're doing at the base and the other one does not, but in their relationship it makes them unable to deal with each other. In just about every scene that they're in together, Rhodes is at Frankenstein's throat and the two can't find any compromises. But when we go back and look at John and Sarah in this scene, again, it's completely different. Despite having clearly different outlooks on life and what they're doing at the base, by the end, when it really matters, the two were able to work together and surprise, surprise, they and Bill were the only ones who made it out of the movie alive because of it. They end the movie safe and free, but as shown from the way Sarah keeps her calendar, she hasn't changed, and it's fair to say that since they ended up on an island, like John suggested earlier in the movie, he hadn't changed either. Their ability to put aside their differing beliefs ultimately allowed them to have an exit strategy that landed them both safe and seemingly happy on a beautiful island. If any of this sounded at all interesting to you, I would recommend that you go and watch this film for yourself, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. This is just scraping the top. But with that, I will see you next week.